Okay, I am horribly, horribly, horribly behind the fact with these. These comics all came out last week, and I never got around to talking about them because last week was a hell of a week. Bunch of stuff happened personally, and I didn't really get around to talking about comics until now, the night before new comics come out again. Um, so I'm gonna try to do it quick here in about I think YouTube, I don't know, 15 minutes. I'm gonna try to talk about four things. Um, Four things I'm going to talk about are Secret Avengers number 3, the new Green Lantern, the new Flash, and the new Action Comics. We'll start it off with Secret Avengers number 3 with a very nice Marco Digiorgic cover. This is continuing Ed Brubaker and Mike Deodato's secret Black Ops Avengers team almost. They kind of are an alternative, naturally, to the Brian Bendis's Avengers and New Avengers, and even furthermore Christos Gage's Avengers Academy. This is more along the lines of, well, it's Ed Brubaker, which means it's good. Honestly, based on my reviews, I've not been too happy with the current ongoing Avengers book or New Avengers. But this has been really, really good. Anyway, this picks up with last issue. Basically, they've been led to Mars, an old Roxxon mining encampment on Mars that they were investigating. And Nova went to investigate it and lost contact with the team. So Steve Rogers led his rather interesting group of Avengers to go find it. And that resulted in them now, in the last issue, they encountered Nova, who is now under the influence of the Serpent Crown, which means that he is very bad news, and he is separated from the Nova helmet. Basically, I'm not going to get too much into the details of it, because it's really, really good, and if you like the Avengers, I suggest checking this out, because this is quite possibly the Avengers book you need to be reading. It's got Steve Rogers in it. You know what? That almost makes it more Avengers to me than anything else. So we've got, again, Mike Deodato is handling art duties. He's did Dark Avengers back when Dark Avengers was coming out, and so he's well suited to this kind of dark, gritty atmosphere that we do here. The only issue I'm really having is that next issue's big plot point's kind of been spoiled. Basically, in this issue, Steve Rogers has to take up the cause against Nova in order to try to stop him from unleashing what is revealed to be a rather dangerous entity that is thriving within a gate that's on Mars. And we find out that there is another Serpent Crown that is being held on Earth that Nick Fury is somehow involved in. I'm not really sure if that's really Nick Fury or not. It's kind of confusing. It kind of goes against the Nick Fury we're seeing in other things. But we'll see how that plans out. But anyway, Nova is working to stop these things and basically plowing through everyone that gets in his way. Valkyrie, Moon Knight, everything. Nothing can stop him. So, unfortunately, this is going to be kind of a spoiler. It's almost painfully obvious that next issue Steve Rogers is going to put on the Nova helm in order to try to stop him. I can tell you, because at the end of this issue, he stops even the most anticipated people, leaving Steve Rogers to go, oh God, but then when your teaser image is that, it leaves very little to the imagination as to what exactly is going to happen here. So, it's not bad. Again, this is probably the most solid of the Avengers books, and if the worst thing is that something like that is predictable, it's pretty good. This is a very serious team, which I think is good, because Bendis is kind of overdoing it with the humor in New Avengers and Avengers. New Avengers, that works a little bit better, but in Avengers, Spider-Man is cracking jokes non-stop, and it's bugging the crap out of me. So, you want Avengers, you read Secret Avengers. That's the only Marvel book I had. I'm going to move on to some DC stuff. Now, I don't physically have Flash number 4 sitting here because I already read it and put it away, but it was continuing the Dastardly Death of the Rogue story arc, which was a really good... It's the... Flash Rebirth got a lot of crap when it brought back Barry Allen because Flash Rebirth was, to put it very mildly, confusing at best. So this new ongoing Flash series, which has Jeff Johns with art by Francis Manapul, is, I think, a very good step in the right direction. It moves forward acknowledging Rebirth, but not dwelling on Rebirth. It's just getting into a great straight-up Flash story. And this story is called The Dastardly Death of the Rogues, and it's got the Flash primarily, and now the Rogues, and now Captain Boomerang takes kind of a big forefront in this issue. And another big factor is a group called the Renegades, who are from the 25th century, and they are basically time cops almost, that are dressed in a fashion similar to that of the Rogues. I mean, you've got Mirror Monarch, you've got Commander Cold, you've got that sort of thing. And they come back to arrest the Flash for a crime he will commit. Very Minority Report. And so the Flash is naturally not wanting to go through with it. So last issue, when he's about to get arrested, Captain Boomerang comes in and steps in, reasserting himself. Captain Boomerang being one of the 11 brought back at the end of Blackest Night. And he now has a very strange ability to create boomerang constructs. I'm sure that's going to be something more in the Brightest Day beats that were picked up on. And I'm sure we'll be learning more about that. But for the most part, it's been really, really good. This again, I think, has been a good step in the right direction away from Flash. Now, I enjoyed Flash Rebirth. My issue with Flash Rebirth is that it changed a lot of things about Barry Allen that I didn't like. It changed his history where there was a course of tragedy. And my big thing that I liked about Barry Allen is that he was one of the few people that he was a superhero not because his home planet blew up or his parents got killed in an alley or he got chosen by some higher power. He was a hero simply because doing the right thing was the right thing. I mean, honestly, not to be corny, a mentality that I tried to instill in myself. So I was kind of annoyed that they retroactively introduced a driving force behind him becoming a cop. Basically, his mother was killed, and his dad was framed for it. And we find out in Flash Rebirth, naturally, that it wasn't his dad that did it. It was a plot by Professor Zoom. So, but that's another time for another. That's another conversation for another time. But Flash has, like I said, it's very nicely moved away from it, and we're getting a really great straight-up Flash story. And Flash, this art goes on for 2 more issues with Francis Manapul doing all the art. And then we get a fill-in by Scott Collins, who's another really, really great Flash artist. So if you like the Flash, the Flash book and Flash Rebirth kind of turned you off to the Flash, check out the Flash ongoing. It's definitely a step up. Jeff Johns is back in his element with the Flash, with the Rogues, and Francis Manapul is knocking it out of the park with the art. He's come a long way since Legion of Superheroes, Witchblade even, Legion of Superheroes. And it's a style very similar to that of Adventure Comics, but he's really having a good time with the motion stuff. So check it out. It's good. Another one that I don't have with me here, but that I also read was the new Green Lantern. I want to say it was 57 or 56. It was the newest issue, and this issue, it's got Hal Jordan being eaten by Hector Hammond on the cover. Yeah, I said that. This one is a big Hector Hammond issue, as the cover would imply. Hector Hammond is still in Belle Reve prison after the events of the first arc on Green Lantern, essentially, back 5 years ago. So he is miraculously sprung out from prison by an unknown authority or an unknown force who we're assuming is trying to collect the entities. Like, every single Lantern Corps is an entity. Like, Yellow Lanterns have Parallax, which infested Hal Jordan and Kyle Rayner, and the Green Lanterns have Ion, who will inhabit, kind of become the ultimate Green Lantern. And we found out that all of these corps, all 7 corps, have an entity that kind of embodies their everything that their corps is about. There's one for the Blue Lanterns, one for the Red Lanterns. The red one's a bull, the orange one's a snake, the yellow one's a grasshopper-looking thing, and the blue one is, I forget. But this one focuses mostly on the orange lanterns as well. Hal Jordan goes and confronts Larfleeze, who has been robbing people because Larfleeze just likes to have stuff. Hal Jordan only finds him to find out that Larfleeze is writing a letter to Santa Claus because Santa Claus gives people everything they want, leading to the eventual sit-down where we explain just the truth about Santa Claus to Larfleeze. But anyway, Hector Hammond, after he's been set free, intervenes at that point and tries to get the orange battery so that this thing can assumedly try to capture the orange entity. And after a very prolonged and extended fight scene between Hal Jordan, Larfleeze, and Hector Hammond, under the influence or not, eats the Orange Lantern and then becomes one with the Orange entity. So basically, Hector Hammond is given a major boost here. Basically, in as much as Parallax would bond with Hal Jordan, the Orange Lantern entity has now bonded with Hector Hammond, and that's how the issue ends. It's a pretty straightforward bang bang action issue start to finish, so it reads pretty quickly, but doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It does quite the opposite, in fact. Green Lantern has really been good. It's honestly, like I said, probably Blackest Night did a lot to build on the mythos, and so Green Lantern is now addressing that mythos directly. We've got, of course, Jeff Johns writing. He writes The Flash as well. And Doug Mahnke is handling the art on this, as he has been since Green Lantern 43, I think. Except for one fill-in where I think Ed Benes stepped in. And Doug Mahnke's doing some really great stuff. I love Doug Mahnke since before I can remember. And Jeff Johns has been knocking it out of the park with Green Lantern. So if they keep this up, I will more than happily be along for the ride. So Green Lantern, also worth checking out. And the last thing, well, almost the last thing we're going to talk about this week, the last book we're going to review, that is the newest issue of Action Comics, which I do have here. Sorry for the glare. With a nice David Finch cover there. A very misleading cover, because that scene, again, never happens. This is continuing Paul Cornell's Action Comics run, which started last issue. And this is a Lex Luthor-centric arc called The Black Ring. Basically, post-Blackest Night, in Blackest Night, Lex Luthor got an orange ring. And post-Blackest Night, he's been trying to find a way to recreate that power, So he kind of sets out on a path to find a Black Lantern ring, so he's starting to trace the energy sources as he can. Anyway, at the end of last issue, we were revealed Mr. Mind came through. But in this issue, Mr. Mind is trying to manipulate Luthor into believing that he needs to set out on his quest for power basically alone. Convince him that he doesn't need anyone. And Lex Luthor is able to overcome all of this conditioning, all of this suggestion, however, by basically taking control. So basically, when you try to control Lex Luthor's mind, he still outsmarts you. This is really showing us how much of a threat Lex Luthor actually can be. And Paul Cornell really is knocking it out of the park here. I love Paul Cornell. I loved him when I talked about the last issue, Captain Britain, all of that. It's fantastic. So he's continuing that arc very strongly here. So he naturally gets out of Mr. Mind's mentality by kicking him off the roof, because Mr. Mind is a little worm, and then decides to set off on his quest with his Lois Lane robot. Yes, that's all true. I'm not going to explain that one for you because I want you to read it. And then he calls in, at the end of the issue, he calls in Deathstroke to basically assist him. And so this has been great. I mean, if you don't like Superman, I mean, check this out, because this is not a Superman book. I don't even think Superman's appeared, other than a sort of haphazard allusion in one of his fantasies he has here. So it's been really good. We've got art by Pete Woods, and on this issue we also have Kafu and Bit assisting, and they do a pretty good job of putting it together, so it's not too jarring. Kafu will also be launching the new Thunder Agents for come November, which I'll be checking out. But it's been really good. This is Action Comics, Paul Cornell, who I've loved from his Doctor Who work. So that's also worth checking out. So 4 things definitely worth checking out. And the last thing I'm going to mention today is something I actually got in the mail. This was kind of just neat. This is a copy of Thunderbolts 141 by Jeff Parker that is actually signed by Jeff Parker, as you can see right there. He had a thing where he said if you sent something to his Gmail address with your address, he would send you a book. And so I did, and here it is, and I thought that was really cool. Ouch. I just kind of pricked myself. Ouch. But anyway, that's going to wrap up this segment here. I will ideally, assuming, be back tomorrow to talk about some things. I have no idea what's coming out, but who knows? We'll see what happens, and I will see you